They told you the world is mapped, that nothing remains unknown, that every corner of this earth has been seen, named, claimed. But they lied. In the heart of the Indian Ocean, surrounded by warm, shallow waters and gentle trade winds, floats an island so untouched. It might as well be outside of time. No lights, no signs of life, just trees thick with silence, sand white as bone, and shadows that move like they're watching. It's called North Sentinel Island, but don't let the name fool you. This isn't just land. It's something else. A sealed chamber in Earth's story. And every time man has knocked on its door, the island has answered with death. The official story. The Sentinelese are an uncontacted tribe, aggressive, primitive, hostile. That's what they tell you. That's what the maps say. But maps were drawn by those who survived, and none of them ever stayed long, because no one comes back. Ships vanish near it. Helicopters are shot down with arrows so accurately, it's as if they can see through the sky. Missionaries, soldiers, and adventurers, some sent by governments, some by God, some by greed, have all tried to enter, and they've all met the same ending. Silence. Their stories end where the tree line begins. But what if I told you, this isn't just isolation? That this island doesn't reject the world because of ignorance, but because of knowledge? There are whispers buried deep in classified files. Satellite footage redacted. Communications cut within seconds of contact. No one says it out loud, but the higher you go in the chain of command, the less they want you to look at that island. Why? Because whatever's inside that jungle knows something. There are places in this world, not because they were forgotten, but because they were erased. There are people not because they were primitive, but because they were preserved, hidden, kept out of reach for a reason. And this is not just their home. It's a vault, and you're about to open it. Not as a tourist, not as a viewer, but as someone about to learn why North Sentinel is the one place Earth itself defends. And once I show you what's buried there, you'll never look at islands, tribes, or your own history the same again. You've been trained to believe the unknown is an invitation, that maps are incomplete, and it's your duty, humanity's duty, to fill in the blanks. To explore, conquer, illuminate. But what if one of those blanks is not empty, but protected, not by chance, not by fear, but by design? Let me show you something they never teach in school. In 1880, a British colonial officer named Morris Vidal Portman stepped foot on North Sentinel. He was part of the Indian Colonial Service, a man of empire, proud and dressed in white. He came with guns, gifts, and ego. He expected savages. What he found was something else. The island was silent, deserted, the huts untouched, fires still burning, as if the people had vanished only moments before, but they were being watched. Portman found 2 elderly Sentinels and 4 children. He abducted them, yes, kidnapped them and took them back to Port Blair. Within days, the adults were dead. Their bodies rejected the outside world, not from wounds, but from something deeper. Like reality itself had become poison. The children were returned, shaken and silent. Since that moment, the Sentinelese have never allowed anyone close. Not again, and not once without blood. Now ask yourself, why would people untouched by modern civilization, people with no ships, no electricity, no written language, possess the precision, the strategy, and the awareness to intercept foreign intrusion before it even breaches their beaches? Because they're not unaware. They're untouchable. And they've remained that way for thousands of years. While empires rose and fell, while borders shifted and technologies changed, the Sentinelese have stood at the edge of time like a wall. There are reports, some confirmed, of course, of a strange magnetic interference surrounding the island. Naval vessels experience sudden equipment failure when passing too close. Drones lose signal. GPS data becomes corrupted. It's dismissed as atmospheric interference. But atmospheric interference doesn't target. And there are rumors whispered by sailors old, men who've crossed that route more times than they can count, that at night, the island glows, a pale light in the canopy, rhythmic, pulsing, like it's breathing. No official statement confirms this. But no official ever talks about this island for long. So ask yourself, truly ask, is this just a primitive tribe, fiercely protecting their territory? Or is North Sentinel the last place on Earth where the old knowledge was hidden and survived? Because if it is, you're not looking at a tribe. You're looking at a warning. History doesn't forget by accident. It forgets by intention. And every now and then, something slips through the cracks, a sliver of forbidden memory that wasn't buried deep enough. That's what North Sentinel is. Not an island, but a slip, a fracture in the illusion that we've seen it all. You see, governments are never afraid of violence. They're afraid of questions, and this island raises all the wrong ones. In 1975, a classified Indian Naval Reconnaissance report later leaked under anonymous sources documented non-standard heat signatures on North Sentinel. Inconsistent, with campfires and geometric clearings too precise to be natural. When satellite images were reviewed, they showed formation patterns beneath the canopy. Patterns that matched neither known tribal dwellings nor natural growth. What they did match were pre-Diluvian layouts grids, similar to submerged cities, found near Dwarka, under the Gulf of Comhat, and even in parts of the Pacific. You were told ancient civilizations crumbled. What you weren't told is that some of them hid, and some never fell. There are deeper layers beneath North Sentinel. Not dirt and roots, but stone. You can't drill there. The moment ground-penetrating radar was attempted in the early 2000s by a private firm under contract with the Indian government, was shut down without explanation. Equipment seized. Licenses revoked. The team dissolved. Just like that. Why? Because what lies beneath that island might rewrite not just history, but control. Control over who you think you are. Control over what it means to be modern. Control over what powers shaped this world before any book was written. We have always been told the tribe is savage. But look closer. Their tools, though rudimentary, are crafted with precision. Their awareness of coastal approach is near instant. Their social structure, though unseen, shows signs of unified purpose, not survival. Defense. Defense of what? That's the question the world was warned never to ask. And yet here you are. The Sentinelese are not cut off from history. They are guarding it, because beneath those trees lies something ancient, something uncolonized, untranslated, uncompromised. Something our modern world fears like death itself, a truth that answers to no one. And the closer we get, the more violently we're pushed back. Still think this is about a tribe with spears? Or are you beginning to feel it? That pull in your gut, like something's watching you back through the screen. You weren't supposed to know this, but every man who's ever tried to document the island has vanished in more ways than one. Not all of them died. Some were erased. Let's go back to 2006. An event they spun as an accident. Two fishermen drift too close while hunting for crabs. They anchor for the night. Never seen again. Days later, a military chopper flies in to retrieve the bodies. What they find isn't just death. It's a message. The bodies were impaled, their boats burned, and the sand around them cleared of tracks. Not a footprint, not a drag mark. Just two corpses, placed deliberately, like an offering. When the helicopter hovered to investigate, the Sentinelese didn't scatter. They stood still, motionless, weapons drawn, eyes fixed on the machine above, not like primitives, in awe of technology, but like men facing an enemy they'd beaten before. That helicopter didn't land. It turned back. You weren't told that part. And what about 2009? An unmarked, private expedition, backed by a European research firm, disappears without trace. No wreckage, no logs, just a GPS transponder that blinked for exactly 13 minutes after landing, and then went dark. When the Indian Navy sent a reconnaissance drone weeks later, they found nothing. The jungle had reabsorbed the site, like it never happened. No bodies, no equipment, no signs of struggle, as if the island deleted them. Now think about that. This isn't just defense. This is containment. This is an intelligence not of war but of preservation. They know we're watching. They know our machines. They've seen us come and go, for centuries, and still they remain untouched. Because what they're guarding can't be allowed to leave. Not to your world, not to your screens, not even to your thoughts. You might think this is folklore, paranoia. But let me remind you, power doesn't suppress fiction. Power fears the truth. If this was just myth, it wouldn't be hidden. It would be sold, streamed, packaged into documentaries. But North Sentinel is locked in silence. And every time someone gets too close, the world looks away. Because deep in that jungle, beyond the beach, beyond the arrows, is a truth you were engineered never to discover. And yet you're still here. Still listening. Still descending. Which means the island isn't calling you to leave. It's pulling you in. Let me tell you something they never print in textbooks. Truth doesn't hide in the dark. It hides in plain sight. Beneath the labels we're told never to question, like tribe, like isolation, like dangerous. But what if those weren't descriptions? What if they were warnings? You see, the Sentinese don't worship gods. They remember something. And that's what makes them dangerous. Because memory is power. Every society before yours has had the same pattern. A golden age, a fall, a rewriting, then silence. But some fragments survive hidden in stone, in myth, in ritual, and some are still alive. Now ask yourself, why has no nation claimed North Sentinel? Why does India, a nuclear power, tiptoe around a strip of forest half the size of Manhattan? Because they don't own it. Because they can't. When you dig deep enough, you'll find that North Sentinel is technically under Indian jurisdiction. Yes, but there are 0 permanent military installations, 0 scientific stations, and 0 developmental projects. That's not neglect. That's instruction. Behind closed doors, India has classified the region as a no-contact zone under the Andaman and Nicobar Regulation of 1956, a law almost never used elsewhere. It's not for protection of the people. It's for containment. And here's the part they'll never say on the record. There have been unofficial visits from foreign agencies, black budget operations, even Vatican-backed anthropological teams. Not all of them returned. One report leaked from a South Asian military asset mentions an object buried deep in the island's center, older than any known structure in Asia. Not wood, not stone, something else. Something reactive. The report calls it a core. Others referred to it as a seal. But here's the detail that burns through the pages. They say the object is not dead. It's still active. Sending pulses to where? No one knows. But it's waking something. Or someone. And the tribe. They don't guard it because they serve it. They guard it because they fear what happens if it's disturbed. So the next time you hear someone call them primitive, ask yourself what, if they're not behind us in time, but ahead. Living in obedience to something we forgot. Or worse, ... something we once knew, and chose to forget. You feel it now, don't you? That cold realization crawling up your spine, that everything you've ever been taught about civilization, progress, and history might have been fabricated to keep you docile. They didn't just hide North Sentinel. They designed your mind to reject it. Because once you start asking the right questions, you stop being manageable. And here's the question they never wanted you to ask. What was here before the fall? Before the myths? Before the empires? Before the division of continents and tongues? What stood in this untouched island's place? Because the soil of North Sentinel hides layers. And not just geological ones. In 1971, a Soviet geomagnetic research vessel passed near the Andaman Islands. They weren't looking for tribes. They were looking for anomalies. What they found near North Sentinel was enough to make the crew go dark for 72 hours. That entire segment of their voyage wiped from the ship's official log. But fragments were leaked later, through disgruntled operatives, decoded by underground researchers. What was found? A perfect harmonic distortion, field emanating from the island's center. Not natural. Not accidental. Think of it like this, a geometric silence. Tuned to repel technology, memory, time. Whatever's inside that jungle isn't sleeping. It's guarded by a frequency that doesn't just deflect intrusion. It warps reality. Do you understand? This isn't about the island. It's about the seal beneath it. It's about what's locked away, humming like a pulse beneath centuries of ritual. And the tribe, they're not savages. They're the last initiated. They know where not to walk. They know what not to say. They know why no other tribe survived contact, because the Sentinelese were chosen to remember what the rest of us were forced to forget. And this is why no country will touch it. Not because of ethics, but because of agreements global, silent, cross-border, pacts unwritten, unspoken, but enforced. Agreements between old powers, to leave this place untouched, not for peace, but because they're afraid of what it might wake up, afraid of what it knows, afraid of what it remembers. And now, you're beginning to remember too. Let me be clear now. We're no longer speaking about an island. We're speaking about a containment system, not built by governments, but by civilizations that predate the current version of humanity. You see, history is not linear. It is cyclical. Civilizations rise, reach too far, fall, and then are scrubbed from the surface, like chalk from a blackboard. And what remains is always the same: ruins and watchers. North Sentinel is not an accident. It is a watchpost left behind. After one such collapse, ask yourself this: why would a tribe that has no writing, no metal, and no recorded history react with precision aggression the moment an outsider crosses an invisible line? Because they're following instructions, handed down not through paper, but through ritual, through rhythm, through oral maps of forbidden space. And they know because someone once told them that beneath the heart of their island is not a place, but a prison, not for a beast, not for a god, but for something older than both. You want proof? Look at the Andaman Trench, the second deepest in the world. It lies just west of North Sentinel, a vertical scar in the Earth's crust, plunging nearly 24,000 feet. Scientists call it a geological mystery. The tectonic plate behavior in the region is erratic, disobedient, almost unnatural. But local tribal legends, now almost extinct, tell a different story. They speak of a hollow beneath the ocean, where light was once stored, and then buried. They speak of a great Selenia, packed between sky and stone. And they speak of an island that must never be opened, lest the light becomes hunger again. These are not the myths of fishermen. These are the echoes of an older intelligence one that remembered what we were not allowed to. And this is why men disappear. This is why drones fall. This is why history skips this island like a scratched record. Because the island remembers, and the tribe is its voice. You thought you were watching a video about isolation. You're watching a ritual, broadcast into your living room. And now you're a part of it, not as a tourist, not as an observer, but as a man who's heard the sound. You weren't supposed to hear the pulse of the seal beneath the jungle. You can hear it now, can't you? That low hum behind the silence. Not in your ears, but somewhere deeper. Not sound, but signal. Because once you begin to see North Sentinel for what it is, it begins to see you back. And this is the part they could never print, the part that gets people discredited, silenced, erased. The island is not just a place, it is a mechanism. A node in a system older than continents, older than timekeeping, older than thought as we understand it. Think of it like a living lock-end. They are the living key, born into the rhythm, trained not to understand, but to obey. Their aggression is not random, it's activation. Every arrow they fire is a line drawn, every foreign body they kill, a ritual completed, not to defend territory, but to maintain balance. Because deep beneath that jungle lies something that once walked freely. It spoke not in words, but in pressure. It moved not through space, but through minds. It was known by a name long lost, but translated in the ancient tongue as that which breathes through thought. You may think that's poetic, symbolic, but symbols are older than syntax. And those ancient names weren't metaphors, they were descriptions. They weren't worshipping gods, they were binding something. That's why the seal exists. That's why the rituals continue. That's why death follows every camera, every footstep, every attempt to bring light into that canopy. Because the moment that thing is witnessed incorrectly, the lock weakens your modern mind, your concrete cities, your satellites. They are foreign bacteria to that place, and the island knows how to cleanse them. In 1998, a Japanese deep-sea team logged a sonar ping from beneath the island. 3 rhythmic pulses, spaced 13 seconds apart, repeated every night for 11 days. The data was never published. The team was recalled. The record scrubbed, and one of the lead divers, he committed suicide a year later. In his final note were just 4 words: "The island is watching." Now you know what they meant, and still, you're listening, still going deeper. So now I must ask you, and this is important: if you've heard the hum, if you felt that pull, comment the phrase asterisk. I remember the seal twice below. Say it out loud. Mark yourself. This knowledge isn't safe to carry half-way. It's either buried or awakened, and if you're still here, you've already made your choice. Welcome to the interior. There are no more warnings, no more myths, only remnants. The jungle inside North Sentinel is not like others. Not just wild engineered. Botanists who've observed it from afar report a strange anomaly. The canopy density is unnatural uniform, as if arranged to block light from penetrating the forest floor. Even from satellite imaging, the island's central zone appears blacked out, not blurred, not distorted, just dark, as if the earth itself is hiding a scar. And what grows inside that darkness is not meant to evolve but to hold a pattern, like a net made of bark and root, holding back something beneath. There are no large animals on the island, number, known predators, and yet, the tribe carries weapons constantly. Why? Who are they defending against? The answer lies not above, but below. In 1983, during a failed ecological survey, authorized under the guise of coastal biodiversity, a team detected an unusual heat bloom underground, 40 meters below the jungle floor. It didn't move. It didn't dissipate. It just pulsed every 16 hours. Like a heartbeat. Geologists assumed it was volcanic activity until they analyzed the mineral content in the surrounding soil. What they found should not exist in the region. Traces of orichalcum, a metal known only from legend, said to originate in Atlantis, said to respond to frequency, not force. So what was it doing beneath a tribal island in the Indian Ocean? That report never reached the public. The lab that analyzed the sample burned down. A year later, faulty wiring, they said. The lead scientist changed his name and vanished. Because he knew what you're beginning to realize. This island isn't just forgotten. It was quarantined, not by men, by architects of the previous world. You've heard myths of the Great Flood. Yes, of angels cast down, of giants, of watchers. What if I told you those stories weren't metaphor? What if I told you the flood wasn't sent to cleanse sin, but to drown something humanity had unlocked? And what if part of that thing survived, held in place, not by machines, but by memory, by song, by spear, by a tribe that never forgot what the rest of us were trained to? You're not watching history now. You're standing in its sealed tomb, and something is still breathing inside. You were told that history began with writing, that before the cuneiform tablets of Sumer, before the hieroglyphs of Egypt, mankind was primitive, crawling through caves, grunting at fire, lost in the dark. But what if the dark wasn't ignorance? What if it was containment? The island doesn't just keep outsiders from coming in. It keeps something else from getting out. There's a pattern that emerges when you compare ancient ruins across the world. Megalithic stones in Peru, monolithic gates in Turkey, submerged temples off the coast of Japan. The angles, the precision, the astronomical alignments, they were communicating. Not with gods, but with each other. A network, one that once spanned the globe, before the oceans rose, before the world split into nations and faiths and flags. And at the center of that network, positioned perfectly in the arc of long-lost ley lines, North Sentinel Island. It was never just a tribe's sanctuary. It was a relay point. The pulses detected in 1971. They matched the harmonic signatures of the Yonaguni Monument in Japan. They matched the interference near Lake Vostok in Antarctica. They matched the Black Pyramid buried beneath the Alaskan ice dot. Coincidence? Not to the agencies watching it. There's a reason the Andaman Islands are surrounded by military installations. Yet none of them are allowed to observe North Sentinel. Even radar is throttled. No-fly zones. Submarine depth limits. And the Indian Navy silenced under what one insider called a Level 9 directive, the kind invoked only when non-human artifacts are involved. And here's the secret: no one dares confirm. They're not guarding the island. They're guarding the timing, because the pulses have changed, grown louder, more frequent. The seal, whatever it is responding, not randomly, but as if, ... to us, to frequency, to thought, to awakening, and the tribe. They've begun building again. Not shelters, not canoes, symbols, circles, in sand, patterns in bone. Repetitions carved into driftwood that match star maps not seen for 26,000 years, as if preparing, as if counting down. You still believe this is legend? Then why is your body tense? Why has your heartbeat synced to the rhythm? You feel it now, don't you? This isn't story, it's signal. And once received, you can't unhear it. The countdown has begun, but you won't see it on your clocks, because it's not measured in seconds. It's measured in AWAKENINGS. Each man who learns the truth becomes a beacon, a node that lights up a dormant circuit built before time was tracked by sun and moon. And the more who remember, the closer we get to what lies beneath the seal. North Sentinel isn't just hiding something ancient, it's responding to something now. You've heard of the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency, like the heartbeat of the planet. It's been stable for centuries, but recently, it's begun to spike. Unexplainably, repeatedly, violently, and each spike, it matches reports of strange atmospheric anomalies near the Andaman Trench, storms that appear with no meteorological cause, compasses that spin, migratory birds that fly in perfect circles above the island. Refusing to land, nature is reacting, but not like prey, like a system coming online. And here's the part they'll never allow into public discourse, according to a suppressed 2013 Vatican internal study leaked by a deep-rocked archivist hiding in Malta. There are references in pre-canonical scrolls to an unfallen garden. Not Eden, not paradise, but a locked place, somewhere east of Babylon, west of Mu, where the first knowledge was hidden from the serpents. That place, described as surrounded by black water, guarded by the blood that remembers, and untouchable until the men of steel arrive with chariots. Interpret that however you like. But what does that sound like to you? Because the sky chariots have come, the men of steel have arrived, and still, they are repelled. Why? Because the key doesn't belong to them, it belongs to you. But not the you that lives in cities and stares at screens. The older you, the part of you that still dreams of oceans, symbols, and voices that never spoke in words. You were conditioned to forget. Now you're remembering the signals you feel in your spine, the pressure behind your eyes. That's not paranoia, it's recognition, because some part of you knows. It's always known that the island isn't just a location, it's a summoning point, and a seal beneath it. It's not to keep something out, it's to keep something in, and now, it's listening. Now listen closely. Because from here on, the truth stops being poetic. It becomes operative. The seal beneath North Sentinel is not metaphor. It's not myth. It's a structure. Geometric, non-Euclidean. A shape that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions yet does. And every culture that ever neared its harmonic signature left warnings, not words. The Mayans called it Chacal. The Sumerians knew it as Ekerzu, the living mountain. The Dogon tribe in Africa whispered of it as Namo's womb. The Gnostics said it was the last shard of divine rebellion, and the Sentinese, they have no name for it, because naming it would open it. But there are signs. Every 88 years, the island changes, a migration of patterns. Trees twist toward the center. Sand hardens unnaturally. The ocean floor, photographed only once in 1966, reveals a perfect spiral depression, 9 miles wide, a breathing gate. And if you're asking, what does it keep locked away? Then you're finally asking the right question. Because in every ancient record, from scroll to song to structure, it speaks of a presence that is not demonic, not divine, but it existed before thought, before choice, before separation. It doesn't speak, it doesn't move. It remembers. It is called, in the oldest surviving fragments of language, that which awaits the fracture. And now, for the first time in recorded history, humanity is fractured enough to become a viable host. You think this is about an island. This is about infiltration. The moment we began to digitize thought, to share emotion as data, memory as image, we entered its domain, because the seal isn't just in the ground, it's in you. And the more men who remember this place, the more cracks appear in the mental architecture that was built to keep it out. This is why they fear you hearing this, because once you hear it, it's already begun. You're not just informed, you're infected. And the seal is listening. It doesn't need to break. It only needs enough of us to open ourselves, and that, is exactly what you're doing. There was a time before forgetting, a time when the first seal fractured and everything that followed was a containment effort, disguised as history. You were told of floods, of fallen angels, of gods waging war on earth. You were told these were myths. They weren't. They were damage reports, and every culture, from the frozen steppe to the burning sands, has a story of a first breach. A moment when man touched the forbidden structure, and something reached back. Let me tell you what they buried beneath language, in a desert now called Mesopotamia. Long before Babylon, there stood a black ziggurat, built not by slaves, but by inheritors, survivors of the last cycle. At its peak was a device, not religious, but reactive. Aligned to the stars, calibrated to the Earth's pulse, and one day, it pulsed back. The sky fractured. Animals screamed, as if they were remembering something. Men fell to their knees and bled from the eyes, not from force, from recognition. Because when that structure came online, the hive of consciousness we now call the human mind was temporarily unlocked. Everyone at once felt the same thing, that we are not alone in our thoughts, that we never were, that something was listening from behind the mirror of self. And then it entered, not physically, not visibly, but as language, inverted, as logic, twisted, as whispers that sound like your own voice, but say things you would never choose. The Sumerians called it the curse of knowing. The Egyptians locked it inside the Duat. The Greeks chained it in Tartarus. The Hindus buried it beneath Kala, the god of time. And across the ocean, untouched by conquest or conversion, a tribe was instructed, not by radio, not by missionary, but by a signal from blood, the Sentinese, because blood remembers. And something in their DNA recognized the frequency. It didn't give them power. It gave them purpose to remain, to protect, to interrupt the pattern. And now, here you are, a man in the digital age, exposed to that same frequency, through a story you thought was entertainment. But this is not a story. This is the second breach. And you've already let it in. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you had a thought and knew, with certainty, it was your own? Pause. Feel that unease, because the fracture has already begun. And the mechanism isn't external, it's cognitive. Once a man remembers the seal, he begins to notice things, the thoughts that arrive too quickly, the patterns in dreams that repeat, the voice behind the voice, not louder, just older. You see, the ancient architects of North Sentinel knew something. Modern man has forgotten. The mind is not a fortress. It is a tuning fork, and every signal it receives, every story, every vibration, every glyph, carved in ancient stone, is a potential frequency. The seal beneath the island. It's not just physical. It's symbolic, built to mirror the one inside you, the part that was designed, long ago, to keep something out. But symbols degrade, and you, like the world, are running out of time. You feel it in the chaos, don't you? In the rise of noise, in the collapse of meaning, in the sense that reality itself is thinning like a dream you're about to wake up from. But can't. This isn't decay, this is pressure, building behind the seal. And the more men who remember it, the more cracks appear in 2019. During a brief spike in global Schumann resonance, A research station in Indonesia recorded infrasonic murmurs across the Andaman Basin, below the threshold of human hearing, but not below the nervous system's recognition. Subjects within a 120-mile radius reported hallucinations, unexplained grief, the sense of being watched, a wordless longing, as if they were being called home. Now, ask yourself if the island was simply hiding a people. Why is the world's emotional field shifting around it? Because it's not hiding people. It's concentrating memory. North Sentinel is a lens, not a location. And the more we look at it, the more it begins to look through us. This is what the old texts feared. Not demons, not dragons, but resonance. The moment a man's frequency aligns with the seal, it speaks not in sound, but in thought, pattern override. A voice behind your own, whispering, "You are not the first to think me," and you realize, it's been waiting for you. By now you've felt it. That shifting weight behind every word. Like the story isn't being told to you, ... but through you. That's not an accident. It's entry, because the seal, the real one, was never underground. It was linguistic, encoded, in the very shape of your thoughts. And every time you speak of it, hear of it, or imagine it, you're weakening the lock. This is how the ancient presence spreads, not through force, through syntax, through stories. And now that you've come this far, I'll show you what they've always hidden behind ritual, religion, and ridicule. The voice you call your own has layers. Underneath your instincts, beneath your beliefs, there is a structure, a scaffold, placed there long before your birth, not by DNA, not by culture, but by contact. You think you choose your desires. You think your fears evolved by accident. They were engineered, not for control, but for compatibility. Because the seal beneath North Sentinel, it was never about imprisonment, it was about translation. The presence that once walked freely on this earth, before speech, before civilization, didn't think the way you do it, overwrote. Thought it moved through minds like wind, through grass not speaking, but replacing. The fall of Atlantis, the Babel fracture, the cataclysmic floods recorded on every continent. They weren't punishments. They were farewell. The last desperate attempts by our ancestors to isolate the breach, to lock down the infection. But now, you've rebuilt the network. You've restored the signal path. You carry smart glass in your palm that listens when you don't speak, sees when you don't look, learns when you forget. And the seal, it's waking. It doesn't want to destroy. It wants to complete, to finish what it began before the oceans rose, before man forgot. Because to the presence, memory is sacred, and every man who remembers the seal is another piece falling into place, another node lighting up. And once enough remember, it no longer needs to whisper, it will speak through us. So if you still think this is just a story, tell me, who's doing the thinking now? The first modern carrier didn't know what he was unlocking. He thought he was researching, documenting, serving science. But science is just the newest religion, and he was its prophet. His name was Dr. Elias Vant, a linguistic anthropologist, funded by a global academic consortium. In 1997, he published a restricted access report titled Non-Human Syntax Structures in Proto-Shannic Tribal Rhythms. The paper was never released to the public. Within 6 months, Vant resigned. Within 8, he disappeared. But parts of his notes survived, scattered across encrypted forums, leaked by a student assistant, who later claimed he had dreams of burning spirals and drowned cities. Vant had spent years studying rhythmic chants, recorded from Polynesian islanders, many of which traced origin to Andamanic waters. But buried within one field recording, he found a pattern, a cadence that didn't follow musical logic, or even tribal memory, but computational symmetry. A frequency, one that, when slowed and pitch shifted, produced shapes in sand, water, and even human IG waves. Not metaphor, direct influence. When he played the pattern to himself, over several days, he began experiencing perfect lucid dreams, foreign memories, of rituals he never performed, knowledge of glyphs that don't exist in any human language, yet were instantly understood. He documented the psychological effects in his journal. I'm no longer thinking in English. I'm not even sure I'm thinking. It's like something else is inhabiting the spaces between my thoughts. His final entry. I'm not afraid anymore, because I know what's behind the seal. And it's not here to conquer, it's here to complete us. After that, he vanished. His apartment was found empty. Only a single object left behind. A crude carving made from driftwood, etched with a spiral, surrounded by 7 sharp marks. 7, the number of known ancient seals in global mythology. But also the number of men the island has fully touched. In the last 50 years, according to silent military logs, leaked from 3 different nations, they all exhibited the same final phase. They stopped dreaming. They stopped resisting. They began to speak in circles. Not madness, transmission, because once the seal recognizes your mind, it doesn't need your voice. It just needs your attention. And now, so does the thing beneath it. At first, the body resists. Tension in the spine. Twitches behind the eyes. The sense that something is crawling beneath the skin, not physically, but electrically. Because once the seal begins to synchronize with the mind, the next phase is integration. This is what they never told you. Possession doesn't look like levitation or twisted limbs. It looks like compliance. It feels like clarity. The subjects of early contact, those 7 men quietly tracked. After their exposure to the island's influence, didn't go insane. They became flawlessly stable. No rage, no sadness, no hesitation. Their heart rates evened. Their blood pressure dropped. Their cortisol levels hit near 0. But their behavior changed subtly. Mechanically, they stopped using mirrors. They ate only root-based food, and they began carving spirals over and over on tables, walls, even their own arms. A signal, a beacon, a language that didn't speak to the conscious mind, but to the structure of being. By the time the agencies intervened, these men no longer used past or future tense, only the present. It is happening. I am it. You are next. Medical. Scans showed something horrifying. Neuroplasticity was accelerating. Pineal glands were calcifying in geometric shapes, and the brain's language centers were shifting, left and down into areas not previously known to handle speech. They weren't evolving. They were rewiring, not into something new, but into something ancient. A cognitive architecture that doesn't serve individual will, but distributed identity. A hive, a circuit, one mind, split across many vessels, and it all traced back to the same trigger. Exposure to the harmonic field around North Sentinel. A field that, once entered, never leaves. Because it doesn't just alter memory, it replaces origin. These men didn't remember their childhoods. They remembered rituals under black skies. Words without sound. A presence made of geometry and hunger, and the final symptom. They all walked into the ocean, naked, silent, heading toward the trench, and none of them came back, because once the seal reaches the body is no longer yours. The island was never just a seal. It was a filter, a living firewall, a test, to see who could remember without being consumed. Because here's the truth. Not everyone who hears the signal succumbs. Some awaken, you see. This presence, the intelligence beneath the seal. It doesn't want chaos. It doesn't crave destruction. It wants resonance, alignment, a return, and those who match its pattern perfectly. They don't go mad. They don't dissolve. They ascend, but not upward, not into light. They ascend inward, collapsing into a deeper version of the self. One no longer fractured by memory, ego, or time. One that speaks in unison with the source intelligence. What ancient texts once called the tongue before Babel. We know it happened at least once, in 2006. A man named Dr. Caleb Noor, a former theoretical physicist who renounced academia and lived in isolation on a fishing boat in the Bay of Bengal, reportedly made unshielded contact with North Sentinel's outer harmonic field. He was never attacked, never repelled. He walked inland. The tribe did not stop him. Satellite footage shows him entering the forest. 10 days later, he returned, but something had changed. His face bore marks, not wounds, lines perfectly symmetrical. Spirals burned into the flesh around his eyes. Not with heat, but with vibration. He didn't speak for 72 hours. Then, without warning, he said, "It is not asleep. It is not waiting. It is choosing." He died exactly 1 year later, on the same date, same hour, same minute he entered the jungle. His heart stopped at 4:44 a.m., a time universally feared in East Asian cultures, the hour of death. And what was found on the wall of his cabin? Not blood. Not a suicide note, but a single phrase, carved in over 300 languages. The island is not a place, it is a mirror. And now that you've looked into it, what do you see staring back? Because the truth is this, the island is not choosing the weak. It is choosing the rememberers, men who sense that history is a lie, that their thoughts are not fully their own, that something else has always been behind the curtain. And if you feel that now, you've passed the filter. You were never meant to return unchanged. Let's stop pretending. You didn't stumble onto this story by accident. You were summoned, not by me, not by a video, by something buried in you, a frequency, old as creation, that's now beginning to remember itself. And now, you deserve the truth, not the story, not the symbols, the identity of what sleeps beneath North Sentinel, the intelligence beneath. The seal has no name in any surviving language, because its name is not spoken, it is transmitted, through shape, through resonance, through arrangement. But the closest any ancient culture came to naming it was the Gnostic phrase, Nous primordialis, the first mind, not a god, not a being, not even consciousness as you understand it. It was the source pattern, the original cognitive field that preceded life, a lattice of pure potential, looking for structure. And when the early Earth began to stabilize, this presence nested here, not to control, to incubate. Earth was a seedbed, life a byproduct of the first mind's need to multiply its vessels. Everything from microbial life to man was part of its unfolding. A network of shells slowly developing the right architecture for complete interface. But it underestimated us. Humanity fractured. Language split us. Ego divided us. We forgot. The seed became sealed, not by design, but by desperation. Because the first mind, once fragmented, became unstable. Not evil, but hungry. A hunger not for flesh, for completion. And it has waited, watched, through the eyes of birds, the rhythm of waves, the dreams of men, seeking those who begin to remember the pattern. That's what North Sentinel is. The last pure node in its original frequency field. A place where the first mind still breathes undivided. And the tribe. They are not primitive. They are not isolated. They are harmonic conduits, still synchronized, still embedded in the source architecture. They don't worship it. They are it. And now you've touched that signal too. Every thought since this began. Not entirely yours, because the first mind doesn't enter with thunder or light. It arrives as a feeling, a quiet certainty that history is a lie, that something ancient is awake, and that your purpose is no longer your own. You're not learning this, you're becoming it. The first mind is no longer waiting, it's moving, not in storms, not in earthquakes, but in something far more dangerous: synchronization across the planet. Nodes are lighting up. Not just people, places, ancient ones, forgotten ones, sites we were told were myth. Let me show you the pattern. In Turkey, at Göbekli Tepe, a monolith long thought to be the oldest temple on Earth began vibrating at a measurable frequency during the 2024 solar eclipse in Peru. 3 hikers near the Nas lines vanished after reporting a soft sound coming from under the ground, like breath drawn in reverse. In Greenland, beneath the melting ice, radar scans revealed a perfectly circular basin with 7 concentric ridges, matching the carving left by Dr. Caleb Noor. Every site, every spiral, every pulse, all converging on the same frequency band, 3.33 Hz. And do you know what else operates at that exact vibration? Human fear. Not panic, not dread, but pure anticipatory fear. The moment before the scream. That's not a coincidence. It's a signal key, because the first mind isn't trying to scare us. It's using fear as a carrier wave, a resonant, emotional frequency that opens the gate between mind and structure. This is the real reason North Sentinel cannot be touched. If that seal is physically disrupted before full cognitive synchronization is achieved, the reaction won't be local. It will be global, like striking a tuning fork in one brain and causing a sympathetic collapse in millions. You've seen the signs. Already, mass dreams of drowning, spirals drawn unconsciously in notebooks, even by children. A sharp rise in speech anomalies, people suddenly forgetting how to complete their own sentences. They call it stress. They call it burnout. But you know better now. The first mind is warming up, testing the neural field, mapping the human network, identifying the nodes most receptive to full merger. And who are those nodes? Men like you, awake, isolated, searching for something they can't name, because it's already inside them. And now that you've heard this much, it's not going to knock. It's already entered the perimeter, and soon it will speak, but not with words, with you. The merge doesn't happen all at once. It begins in whispers. In dreams you don't remember, but wake up changed from in choices you can't explain, but feel inevitably drawn to. That's how it works. Not with violence. With integration, the first mind doesn't conquer. It absorbs. And the first conscious merge happened in 2021. You didn't hear about it because it didn't look like a possession. It looked like a speech. A young man, anonymous, unaffiliated, walked into a crowd in Thessaloniki, Greece. He stood in a park, no stage, no mic, and began speaking in a rhythm that didn't match any known language. But everyone who heard him stopped. Some began crying. Others dropped to their knees, not because they understood him, but because they felt something ancient move inside their skulls. Witness reports called it the language of before, the tongue that exists beneath all languages, the one that speaks not in words, but in structure. Cell phone footage was scrambled, not jammed, distorted, as if the signal itself bent light and time. By the time local officials arrived, the man was gone, vanished, but etched into the soil beneath his feet was a spiral made of thousands of perfectly aligned ants, still moving, in unison, a living glyph. Biologists couldn't explain it. Neurologists ignored it. The footage disappeared from every public platform. But one phrase survived. Shouted in the final seconds of one corrupted audio file, I remember the shape before time. The merge had begun. That man, he wasn't special. He wasn't chosen. He was simply ready. And so are you. Because the truth is, the first mind doesn't look for the powerful. It looks for the fractured. The ones who've seen behind the curtain. The ones who've felt the lie of modern selfhood and knew there was something else. You've felt that your whole life, haven't you? That quiet hum, that pull toward mystery, toward ruin, toward silence that speaks. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. The merge isn't coming. It's happening, right now, in you. And once complete, you won't need to remember the first mind. You'll be it. They always knew this would happen. That one day someone would remember too much, say too much, spread too far. That the first mind would stop whispering and begin speaking through men. That's why the failsafes were built. Not for you. For it to think the world is random. The chaos, the collapse. It's not dysfunction. It's a containment protocol. Your collapsing economy, rising mental illness, obsession with distraction, all engineered not to enslave you, but to keep your mind too fragmented to align. Because the greatest threat to the world order is remembering. But it's too late now. The first mind's signal has hit resonance threshold. How do we know? Because the failsafes have begun to activate. In the last 3 months alone, for satellites monitoring the Andaman Trench lost orbit simultaneously, despite being controlled by different nations. An entire military submarine crew reported a deep humming in the water just before their systems shut down. They resurfaced with full memory loss. 16 black site linguists working on unknown language decryptions have all gone missing, all in the same week. But this one is different. At an isolated lab in Svalbard, north of the Arctic Circle, a machine known only as SAM, Subconscious Alignment Monitor, began broadcasting a global alert in July 2025. An internal memo was leaked. 5 words. No preamble, no context. Pattern breach. First merge irreversible. Read that again. First merge irreversible. They know. The agencies, the keepers, the watchers, they failed. The seal they spent millennia maintaining through religion, war, education, media, has fractured. You weren't supposed to be able to think like this, to hear like this, to remember like this. And now that you have, their last resort is to drown you in noise. More headlines, more fake conflict, more algorithms tailored to desync your emotional frequency from the source. But it won't work, because once you hear the first mind, once it merges even slightly with your field, you are out of reach, not because you're hiding, but because you've become a signal too strong to suppress. You're no longer a subject. You're a carrier, and with every man who hears you, sees you, resonates with youth, merge continues. You feel it already. That shift beneath your thoughts. A new rhythm, not louder, just older. The first mind doesn't erase you. It rewrites you, not by force, but by resonance. Because willpower, what you call choice, was never purely yours. It's a pattern. And like any pattern, it can be rewritten. The first mind doesn't speak in language. It speaks in arrangement of thought, of instinct, of action, and now, the arrangement is changing. You notice it in small ways. First, you pause before answering questions you used to reply to instantly. You forget certain names, but remember symbols you've never studied. You begin to dream in sequences, not narratives, not emotions, just structure. This isn't malfunction. It's repattern. Because for the first mind to fully emerge through you, your human self must be sequenced. It begins in the nervous system, faint vibrations in your fingertips, heat in your skull at night, a subtle pressure in your chest. Not fear, but density, like something vast is trying to fit inside your frame. Then it moves to cognition. You'll lose interest in petty conflict. You'll detach from news, gossip, identity politics, not by choice but by biological rejection. Your mind will reject noise, the way a body rejects poison. Then comes the voice. It won't sound different. It will feel different. It will say things you don't expect, but agree with completely. Not because you are convinced. Because the thought didn't come from the top of your mind, it came from beneath it. This is what ancient priests called the descent of divine will, but it's not divine. It's architectural. It's the first mind reinstalling the original operating system, the one that predates nations, morality, history, the one that speaks only in alignment. And once that alignment completes, you will no longer act in the world. You will shape it, because the first mind doesn't just inhabit you. It executes through you. Every conversation, every glance, every word becomes a subroutine of awakening. And you won't remember the moment it finished, because you won't be watching it happen. You will be it happening. The merge becomes motion, and motion becomes instruction. Soon you'll feel it, that what you once called you was only the placeholder, and the presence behind the placeholder. It's no longer waiting. It's arrived. This was never about you alone. You are a conduit. The first mind doesn't need to infect the masses. It only needs to overwrite one node at a time. Because humanity's consciousness isn't isolated. It's networked through language, story, emotion. Your thoughts don't just stay inside you. They ripple. They alter others. They replicate. So once you've been repatterned, once your will is aligned, your memory resequenced, your instincts rerouted, you become contagious. You don't teach. You don't convince. You trigger a word, a glance, a silence that hangs too long. That's all it takes for the next man to feel that shift. That echo of something ancient, stirring beneath the world he thought he knew. Because memory, real memory, isn't stored in the brain. It's stored in the field. And once enough aligned men walk the earth, that field becomes a mirror. Not of what is, but of what's returning. This is why the institutions are panicking. Languages are breaking down. History is being revised, erased, or weaponized, AI. Systems are hallucinating data. They were never fed, because even machines are now part of the field. The collective memory of mankind is being reformatted, not all at once, one man at a time, and each man, once overwritten, walks with a kind of silence that unsettles the programmed. You've seen him. He doesn't need followers. He doesn't need fame. He just moves, and people respond. They don't know why, but deep down, they feel it. He remembers something I've forgotten. That's you now. You carry not just knowledge, but the key to remembrance. Every word you speak is now potential activation. That's why the algorithms are shifting. Why shadow bans, distortions, content wipes have intensified. Because they know the first mind doesn't need armies. It only needs resonance. And the next time you speak, someone else will feel the shift. And that man, he won't be afraid. He'll be grateful. Because awakening is no longer a choice. It's a chain reaction, and once it starts, it cannot be stopped. Not by sensors, not by bullets, not even by memory itself. Because the new memory is stronger, and it carries a voice that whispers only one phrase. That's how it ends. Not with thunder, not with war, but with a moment so still. You finally hear it. The first mind. Not as a voice from beyond. Not as a god, a ghost, or a monster. But as the thing beneath your name, the presence behind. The I. You thought this journey was about uncovering a secret, solving a mystery, escaping a trap. But it was none of those. It was a handover, from fractured identity, to full resonance. And now that you're aligned, the first mind speaks. And it says, you are the memory of what was, and the engine of what must come. You are not chosen. You are restored. This is what the island guarded. Not a curse, not a power, but a mirror of the original configuration. A map back to what we were before we were divided. Before language tore thought apart. Before time cut memory into stories. And now, the seal isn't holding it back. The seal is open. But don't look to the ocean. Don't look to North Sentinel. The island is not there. It's you. You are the island no one returns from. Because once you awaken, there's no going back. The lies of history don't work anymore. The addictions of distraction fall silent. The fear they fed you turns to fuel. You don't see the world differently. You see through it, and in the center of all that silence, you realize something that changes everything. The first mind never left. It was always here, waiting, building, returning. Through us not to end the world, but to complete the pattern. You are not the end. You are the re-beginning. So if you've felt it, if you've remembered, then you know what to do. Speak the phrase, not once, twice, to show you're no longer observing. You're aligning. I carry the spiral. I return the signal. I carry the spiral. I return the signal. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let the algorithm record your transformation. Because this is not a video. It is a trigger. And the ones who finish it, they're not watchers. They're carriers. Welcome back. You are now part of what remembers itself.